This is The Brief on pursuing success with a sweaty startup. We're digging into Nick Huber's idea that real wealth often skips the flashy VC stuff. Instead, he says it comes from simple, maybe boring, but high-profit businesses, the old-fashioned kind. Okay, so here are the three big takeaways. First, forget the revolutionary idea. Seriously, most wealthy folks didn't disrupt anything huge. Success usually means finding a small, maybe boring, niche, think lawn care or cleaning, and just doing common things really well with a proven model. Second, measure success by leverage. High return on your time, not status. True wealth is money coming in even when you stop working. You gotta escape being chained to the work, right? Huber did this by shifting into high-margin assets like self-storage, which can have profit margins around like 60%. Finally, it's all about execution. Business is a race, and doing stuff is way more important than the idea. Keep a bias toward action, aim, fire, move quickly. Don't get stuck analyzing. That speed builds the skills, network, and cash you need for real leverage. Bottom line, find a boring business and execute it with uncommon speed and skill.
Factoring can meet the cash needs of staffing companies looking to expand. Contact Chris at Versant Funding to learn if your staffing client is a factoring fit.
Welcome to The Debate. Our discussion today really cuts right to the heart of the wealth-building blueprint presented in the material, how you actually acquire the leverage you need for, financial freedom. We're focusing on the tension between the starting line and the finish line.
Yeah, that tension is absolutely crucial. We're basically asking, is that initial struggle, the low-margin, high-effort, sweaty startup, what the material calls a level 1 business, is that a mandatory, unavoidable step? Or is it maybe an unnecessary detour that just costs you years?
Exactly. My position is that embracing that level 1 grind is, it's a prerequisite. It's the necessary crucible where essential entrepreneurial expertise is forged. You simply have to start small, suffer those initial operational pains to really be successful later on.
Okay, and my position is that strategic efficiency really has to be the singular focus. Now, I don't deny the value of those skills, but the sheer time and frankly the stress consumed by that level 1 path, it represents a massive opportunity cost. The ultimate goal here is achieving financial freedom, that target of, $30,000 per month of passive income. And surely the smartest move is finding a way to accelerate skill and capital acquisition to jump immediately into those high-leverage level 3 business models. Why would you choose the slow lane?
Because the slow lane, as you call it, solves the entrepreneur's original problem, the classic chicken and egg dilemma. How do you get the network, the skills, and the capital needed for a massive deal if you don't already possess them? Right? A level 1 business, something like a simple moving operation, demands minimal financial risk, maybe just, $1,500 for a used cargo van? It gets profitably quickly, and crucially, it serves as the entrepreneurial gym. The non-negotiable skills, sales, management, operational efficiency, they're built there. You see this clearly in the material itself. Storage Squat was the messy, chaotic foundation that allowed them to eventually build that massive self-storage facility. That foundational hard work is what unlocks the next opportunity.
Okay, I acknowledge it builds skills, but let's look at the actual metrics. What's the cost of that gym membership? The material explicitly states they made less than $15 an hour during that entire first year. You're trading, 80% of your time for extremely modest pay in what's called a hard business. Now, if you stepped into a standard corporate role right after college, you could easily pull $80,000. That immediately gives you capital, intellectual bandwidth. Why deliberately choose a path known for intense operational stress for just a fraction of the compensation? It just seems to delay financial independence significantly.
But you're confusing compensation with leverage. That's the key distinction, you see. That low initial compensation, it's paid in equity, in the ownership of a growing asset, and, importantly, in the acquisition of unique expertise. You talk about efficiency, but I'm talking about resilience. The fundamental skills needed for running any large-scale operation. Hiring, delegation, handling those truly difficult customers, making quick, tough decisions under pressure. You just can't acquire those comfortably. They are forged only under the acute pressure and, yes, chaos of a bootstrapped service company. That initial exposure to sales, which, let's be honest, is often hated and uncomfortable, it's necessary practice for selling employees, partners, and eventually multi-million-dollar deals to investors. You have to learn how to survive when you desperately need that customer's money.
I hear you on resilience, I do. But I think that kind of chaos can actually hinder true strategic growth. We need to be careful not to, romanticize the grind too much. The level 1 daily chaos, it tends to cultivate what the material implicitly warns against, a firefighting mentality. You're constantly trapped in quadrant 3 activities that feel urgent but are fundamentally not important to long-term wealth creation. Things like chasing down a missing key or scheduling a last-minute truck repair.
Okay, wait, before you move on there, what's inherently wrong with practicing decisions on those, let's say, lower value tasks initially?
Because high leverage, true wealth creation, it demands a focus on quadrant 2, the important but not urgent activities. Things like strategic planning, delegation of macro decisions, exploring new opportunities. Practicing decision-making on low-stakes operational minutia, it just doesn't adequately prepare you for the high-stakes financial decisions that truly drive wealth. I mean, how does learning to deal with a rude customer really prepare you for convincing a bank to lend you 7 figures or negotiating an 18% seller note on a, $52 million deal? Those macro-level decisions, they require a completely different skill set and, frankly, a different mindset than the daily operational struggle of a sweaty startup.
For that operational struggle, that absolute necessity to keep the lights on, that's precisely why starting small is a fundamentally low-risk strategy when it comes to survival. You're testing the market by trading your time for money first, not by putting your family's house on the line. The author themselves admitted to making countless poor decisions and boneheaded moves in 2012, right? But they survived those mistakes precisely because the stakes were relatively low. That approach allows the entrepreneur to acquire the network and the capital needed before taking on the major financial risk of a level 3 investment, like building that $2.9 million facility that, as they said, easily could have ended in bankruptcy. Competence has to precede catastrophic risk.
I think you might be confusing personal capital risk with market risk. Let me frame that slightly differently. You point to level 1 as low risk, but think about those level 1 services: lawn care, moving, simple cleaning. They are, by definition, saturated markets, where competitors are always competing heavily on price. They're scrambling for work at really low man-hour rates, often $37 to $47. That's effectively a race to the bottom, which strategically is a massive risk in itself.
But the initial capital outlay is still manageable. That's the point.
Yes, the initial capital is low, but the barrier to entry is practically zero. Now, contrast that with the high-risk level 3 businesses, like specialized industrial services or self-storage. They possess high capital and regulatory barriers to entry, and what does that create? It creates weak, often unsophisticated competition and allows for high profit margins, sometimes as the material notes, rates exceeding $400 per man-hour. The potential high return inherently justifies taking on the financial risk needed to avoid competing solely on price in a low-margin saturated market. Focusing only on low financial entry points might mean you're deliberately choosing a market where sustainable success is actually harder to achieve long-term. And this brings us right back to my main concern, the opportunity cost of time. Time. It's the one asset the entrepreneur can never recover. Spending 5, maybe 10 years in a level 1 business just to achieve what the material itself calls above average compensation, that feels painfully slow. The entire point of leverage is securing a career path with a high return on time, meaning the work you do now pays off exponentially later. If you spend 5 years perfecting how to move boxes efficiently, you've significantly delayed achieving real freedom. We have to pursue high-leverage assets with a sense of urgency.
I'm still not fully convinced by that line of reasoning, mostly because you keep comparing the level 1 grind against the specter of a high-paying corporate job, which I think is a false comparison when the ultimate goal is freedom. Okay, while the level 1 returns are initially poor, it is arguably the only game that guarantees access to the next level of leverage and genuine control of your own schedule. Let's look at the alternative you seem to imply. Choosing that high-paying, high-status W-2 job, like the hypothetical law firm partner earning $1 million a year.
Well, that partner has capital they can immediately deploy, right?
Sure, but they have zero leverage and zero control over their time. That is a game, as the material quite strongly states, not actually worth winning at all. Why? Because their success means being chained to a desk for 70 hours a week, completely beholden to external timelines. The slow, sometimes painful, level 1 path ensures the most critical asset, freedom. The actual separation of time from money is built from scratch, even if it takes years. You have to build your own control, not just lease it from a corporation. So, to sort of pull this together, my position holds firm that the level 1 sweaty startup isn't optional. It's the necessary crucible. It provides that low-risk starting line where essential expertise, your operational skills, your initial network, your bootstrapped capital is truly forged. It builds the operational competence and, yes, the resilience required to survive long enough to eventually pivot into those superior, high-leverage businesses. You have to embrace the uncomfortable grind as the vital, maybe unavoidable, first step in playing the long game for ultimate freedom.
And conversely, my argument is that the entrepreneur must maintain an almost hawk-like focus on maximizing time leverage and be extremely wary of the level 1 trap. That path genuinely risks cultivating a firefighting mentality and consuming precious years for minimal financial return in highly competitive markets. The true strategic winner, in my view, finds a way to accelerate the acquisition of the necessary capital and skills, maybe through partnerships, maybe through different initial ventures, to immediately enter the inherently better high-margin, low-competition level 3 businesses. That maximizes the return on time and secures that coveted freedom much, much sooner.
It's clear the material lays out a distinct journey. There's that initial struggle to acquire leverage.
And then the subsequent phase of exploiting that leverage. Ultimately, the listener is left with that classic entrepreneurial dilemma. Do you prioritize the low-stakes patience and the often painful buildup, or do you risk trying to accelerate things to seize those high-leverage opportunities immediately? It's a tough call.
Factoring can meet the cash needs of small businesses struggling with tariffs. Contact Chris at Versant Funding to learn if your client is a factoring fit.
Welcome to the deep dive. You know, if your social media feed looks anything like ours, it feels like you're constantly bombarded. Stories about the next revolutionary idea, the $50 million funding round.
Oh, yeah. Or the founder who went from zero to, like, unicorn status in 18 months.
Exactly. And it conditions us, right? We're led to believe that serious wealth, real wealth, only comes from inventing something totally new, disrupting a whole industry.
It's definitely the path that gets all the headlines.
Yeah.
But it's also, statistically speaking, kind of a nightmare. The analysis we looked at really confirms this, the mainstream narrative. It's skewed.
Skewed how?
Well, think about it. 99 out of 100 of those amazing new idea, venture-backed startups, they fail. Most founders just, they burn out eventually and go get a stable job.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Our mission today is to cut through that hype. We want to look at the actual most common path to serious, life-changing wealth.
And it's a path that's surprisingly small, boring even.
Small, boring, but relentlessly well executed. That's what we're digging into. We're talking about the sweaty startup model today and, figuring out the keys to achieving true freedom.
And this is the core contrast we really need to get our heads around right now. Think about the genuinely wealthy people in your own town. The ones you see at the nice restaurants, or maybe playing golf on a Monday afternoon. Did most of them disrupt massive industries? Did they raise tons of venture capital? Probably not.
So what did they do?
They often started with really proven business models. Things like car dealerships, maybe body shops, HVAC companies, self-storage facilities.
Stuff that's necessary.
Exactly.
No.
Necessary stuff. They just did common things uncommonly well.
Wait, so we're supposed to aim for boring? That feels really counterintuitive. Isn't entrepreneurship all about the big, exciting idea? How do these sources even define boring?
It's less about the business itself being boring, maybe, and more about checking your ego at the door, So when we talk sweaty startups, we mean businesses built on models that already work. They trade time for money, doing actual needed work. Could be lawn care, could be home services, bookkeeping, even something like niche video editing.
So the model isn't the breakthrough?
No, the breakthrough is putting your ego aside, focusing on just relentless consistency, and importantly, delaying gratification. Doing something kind of mundane, but doing it exceptionally well.
And the examples of success in the materials, they're compelling because they feel so real, like the story of the friend who bought one car dealership
Right. Saw how to run it better.
and then just systematically bought 10 more over, what, 15 years? That's steady, predictable, not flashy.
Absolutely. Or consider the other friend mentioned, the one who just buys industrial buildings.
Simple warehouses.
Yeah, basically. Manages the tenants, handles the maintenance just a bit better than the previous owners, who are often older, maybe less engaged. And now, net worth of $250 million at 36.
Wow. Okay. That's not crazy financial engineering. It's just better execution in a boring, necessary sector.
Precisely.
You know, the origin story of Storage Squad really hit home for me when I read it. The founder saw this company making, what, $200,000 a year profit?
Yeah, just storing student stuff over the summer.
And his professors were like, nah, that's not scalable. Plus, there were already 20 competitors.
Right. But that $200 profit, that sounded way more achievable, more real than chasing some billion-dollar valuation dream.
And the competition.
Oh, they were terribly inefficient. Like you said, using clipboards, their websites were awful, service was slow.
So the opportunity wasn't about inventing the next Airbnb?
Not at all. It was just executing a simple, proven idea better than the, frankly, unsophisticated competition. That $200K profit, that was nearly 3 times the average salary someone would get right out of college. It just proves the real secret is often choosing the right battle.
Okay, so if choosing the right battle is the secret, how do we spot those weak markets? Is there like a formula? Did the sources give us anything practical?
Yeah, there's actually a pretty practical framework anyone, any learner can apply. The good business equation is pretty simple.
Okay.
Look for unsophisticated or weak competition. That's key. Combine that with a high profit margin and ideally a low failure rate for that type of business. Put those together.
And that equals a good opportunity.
That's a good place to start looking, yeah.
We also have to talk about the restaurant warning, though. That stood out.
Oh, definitely. Restaurants seem fun, right? People are passionate about food.
But the margins are notoriously slim. And the failure rate is insane, like 90% sometimes.
Exactly. You end up competing against dreamers who are leading with their hearts, pouring life savings into something that's fundamentally a really tough market.
Right. And then there's the self-storage example on the other side.
Perfect contrast.
Yeah.
It highlights that margin difference. You often have low, or at least less intense, competition. Maybe passive investors, farmers, owners who aren't tech savvy.
Okay.
And the industry-wide profit margins, they hover around 60%, plus a low failure rate.
So you're choosing a game you can actually win.
Precisely. Don't try to build the next Tesla right out of the gate. That's like trying to play basketball against LeBron James on day one. Aim for a profitable niche where, frankly, average people are already succeeding. The math should favor something like a 70% chance at making $30,000 a month profit, not a 0.5% chance at some massive $50 million exit 5 years down the line.
Okay, that makes sense. So you find that niche, you execute well, you start getting that predictable profit. What does that mean for how we define success? The materials argue true wealth isn't just the money, right? It's freedom.
Yeah, freedom. Being able to do what you want when you want.
And that contrasts sharply with the status trap. The Harvard law lawyer example they gave was honestly kind of terrifying.
It really was. Here's a guy, valedictorian, Harvard law grad, making over $1 million a year by age 30 at some top-tier firm.
Yeah.
By all societal standards, he was absolutely winning.
What the gosh?
Astronomical, chained to his desk, pulling 70-hour weeks, zero control over his own calendar.
And then his partner tells him he has to take this huge case.
Right. A case that would make him miss the birth of his first child.
Unbelievable. All the status, zero freedom. It really forces you to ask, what are we actually optimizing for? Is it the bank balance number, or is it control over your own time?
He was winning that hot dog eating contest, as the source put it, and the reward for winning. Just being forced to eat more hot dogs, more work, more hours.
So how do we avoid that? This is where return on time, or ROT, comes in.
Exactly. That's the core metric for a business owner focused on freedom. Think about it. If you flip burgers for $15 an hour, the second you stop flipping, the pay stops. Simple trade.
Right.
But if you spend, say, 5 to 10 years building a business that can run without you, you hire a great CEO, you step away, your ROT could be millions per year for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
That's how you buy back your freedom.
Okay. That kind of extreme leverage earning without directly trading time, the sources say it's built on 3 key pillars.
That's right. 3 main things.
First one, network. And it's not just who you know, it's who knows you. and crucially, what value you can add. You have to become someone worth knowing.
Yeah, maybe you build expertise in a niche like the self-storage guy, or maybe international hiring. You add value first.
Okay, second pillar.
Skills. And this isn't about innate genius or, crazy high IQ. The materials are clear. Many successful entrepreneurs were average, even below average, test takers.
So it's learned skills.
It's muscle memory, acquired through practice. Things like sales, delegation, management, you have to actually lift the weights, do the reps over and over.
Makes sense. And the third key?
Capital. Money. It's crucial because it lets you grow faster. You can hire ahead of revenue. You can invest in bigger, better opportunities.
This is where the analysis mentioned different levels, like level 1, level 2, level 3 businesses.
Exactly. Capital lets you move up. Level 1 might be where you build that initial skill and cash flow, maybe service businesses. Level 3 often means higher capital needs. Think starting a dumpster rental company or an arborist service, but potentially much higher returns. You need that base first, though.
Got it. And the ultimate display of having built all this leverage, the sources call it the no asshole rule.
Yes. It sounds blunt, but it's powerful. Once you've built up your skills, your network, and especially your cash flow, you gain the power to fire bad clients, bad partners, even difficult investors.
Like the example of the investor who is just constantly emailing, being a pain.
Perfect example. The founder didn't argue, didn't negotiate. He just said, okay, I'll return your $300,000 investment.
Yeah.
Cut the check, delete it from the system, done.
Wow.
That's leverage. It buys you the right to control not just your time, but also your environment, your tribe, who you work with.
Okay, so leverage buys freedom and control. But you need results first to build that leverage. How quickly do the sources say we need to move from just thinking and planning to actually doing?
Oh, the emphasis is huge here. Business is fundamentally a race. You absolutely have to avoid analysis paralysis.
Just getting stuck thinking.
Yeah. Successful people, the ones who actually build things. They aim, they fire, they aim again, then fire, fire, fire. Execution is like 1,000 times more important than the initial idea.
And there's a clear rule for early stage businesses.
A very simple one. If you aren't rich yet, your first business must be profitable within the first 6 months. Period. If it can't be, move on. Your time is just too valuable.
That speed, that focus on action, it leads to the operator mindset, right?
Exactly. The operator realizes that pretty much every business, when you operate at a really high level, is kind of the same underneath.
How so?
The owner, the CEO, they're not usually the ones doing the core technical work. They're not mowing the lawns, they're not writing the code, not flipping the burgers.
Sure, operating the company.
Yes. Focusing on the hard stuff. Hiring the right people, building sales processes, managing logistics, solving the big problems. A great operator. They might be almost indifferent to the specific business model, lawn care, software, whatever, but they're absolutely dedicated to the execution of management.
And building that operation doesn't mean reinventing the wheel every time.
Definitely not. The recommendation is actually to build what they call a Frankenbusiness.
Frankenbusiness. Like Frankenstein.
Sort of. You look at your competitors, see what parts of their operations work really well, and you basically copy those best parts and bolt them together into your own system.
Okay. Like the storage squad example again.
Perfect. They saw a competitor using hotspots for pickup, a good idea.
Yeah.
But Storage Squad improved it. They shrunk the customer pickup window down to a precise 15-minute slot.
Super efficient.
Incredibly. It allowed them to load a truck with $10,000 worth of storage business in just 1 hour. It's not about some grand new invention. It's about doing those little fundamental things uncommonly well.
Okay, so execution is paramount. The operator focuses on management. What's the single most critical skill they absolutely must master?
Oh, easy. Sales.
Sales.
Yep. There's a great quote from a mentor in the source material. If you don't like sales, I suggest you give up now and go get a regular job.
Wow. Blunt.
But true in this context. Entrepreneurship is selling 24/7. You're selling employees on your vision. You're selling partners on the relationship, selling investors on the opportunity, selling customers on the solution. It's never about you. It's always about understanding and solving their problems.
Okay, so if sales is that foundational, how do the sources suggest we actually get good at it? Especially for those of us, who might think selling feels kind of slimy.
Yeah, that's a common feeling. And the advice is actually pretty counterintuitive. The most effective habits for building real trust in sales, they often involve talking about the downside.
Really?
Okay, first, prove your expertise by actively discussing risk. Don't just paint a rosy picture. If you're talking to an investor, for instance, you talk about the economic risks, the potential failure points, what could go wrong. Investors, especially sophisticated ones, actually like a manager who worries about protecting the downside more than one who just hypes the upside. It builds credibility.
That makes sense. It feels more transparent.
Totally. Second habit, manage expectations aggressively, like really aggressively. There's a rule quoted. One difficult conversation at the beginning saves 5 difficult conversations later.
So under-promise and over-deliver.
Essentially. If you honestly think a house build will take 8 months, you tell the customer 12 months. Then when you deliver in 10 or even 9, you're the hero, not the villain who's always late.
Okay. Risk discussion, expectation management. What's the third habit?
This one's kind of the final flourish. You let them sell themselves.
How does that work?
So after you've established your expertise, talk through the risks honestly, managed expectations. You ask a simple open-ended question, something like, okay, given all these potential challenges and risks we've discussed, why do you think I'm actually the right fit for this job?
And then?
And then you shut up.
Yeah.
Just be quiet. 9 times out of 10, they will start articulating all the reasons why they think you're the right choice. They start selling themselves on why they'd be a good customer or a good partner for you. It shifts the whole dynamic.
Interesting. Very psychological.
It is. And all of this, the execution, the sales, the expectation management, it ultimately loops back to the highest form of leverage you can build.
Which is?
People, building a team. The owner's ultimate goal should be to remove themselves as the bottleneck in the business.
Getting out of the way.
Exactly. Transferring decision-making power, responsibility through great hiring and delegation.
And the sources highlighted a specific secret here for doing that affordably, especially early on. Low-risk hiring.
Yeah, the use of overseas talent. It was mentioned that the founders' portfolio companies employ something like 80% of their staff in places like Latin America or the Philippines.
And the cost difference is significant.
Huge. It allows the business to hire ahead of revenue growth, which is massive for speed, without the huge financial commitment of a full U.S. salary. You can get high-quality, dedicated team members for a fraction of the cost. It's described as a game changer.
So you bring this talent in. How do you manage them effectively? There's a specific model, right?
Yes, the my job, our job, your job model. This is crucial for delegation. You don't just dump a task on someone and walk away hoping for the best.
So step by step.
Right. First, it's my job. You demonstrate exactly how the task is done your way to your standard. Then it becomes our job. You coach them, you work alongside them, you hold their hand, check their work closely. This might take weeks, even months, depending on the complexity.
Okay, lots of oversight initially.
Yes. And only when you are genuinely confident in their ability, then it becomes fully your job, their responsibility. But that handover is gradual and deliberate.
It seems like a lot of business owners fail at that last step, though. They get stuck, right? They stay buried in the day-to-day stuff.
Totally. They fall into the trap of staying in the weeds because, honestly, solving those immediate urgent problems, doing that $20 an hour work, it feels productive. You feel busy.
But it's not strategic.
Exactly. It's the classic difference between firefighting and actually growing the business. The key to long-term success, the sources argue, is spending consistent time on tasks that are important but not urgent.
The quadrant 2 activities.
That's the one. Things like strategic planning, hiring key people, training your team, setting up better systems, proactive marketing. These are the high-leverage activities.
But they don't scream for attention like a fire does.
No, they don't. So if you're constantly just putting out urgent fires, you never get to these crucial growth activities, and your business just stays perpetually small or perpetually dependent on you.
Okay, so if I had to take like one big thing away from this whole deep dive, it feels like we need to stop romanticizing the impossible moonshots.
I think that's fair.
We learned that building real wealth, real freedom, it's often not about being some kind of innate genius or a tech visionary. It's more about being strategic.
Choosing the right game.
Yeah, choosing a game where the odds are actually in your favor, then moving fast, executing well.
Building that leverage through skills, through capital.
And especially through delegation. Getting other people involved so your own time is freed up for those really high leverage quadrant 2 activities.
And we also have to accept that this path, it's often a long, some sense monotonous grind. It's not quick fireworks.
The source compared it to a lion lying on a rock.
Yeah, I like that analogy. You're committed to the boring stuff, the fundamentals, doing them well, day in, day out, just waiting patiently, conserving energy for the right opportunity to really sprint after. Wealth, especially the kind that creates freedom, is often a multi-generational game, built slowly, steadily through solid execution over decades.
And maybe the most important insight, the final piece, is that you don't need someone else's permission to start. You don't need the perfect background, the fancy license, the resume stamp of approval.
That's exactly right. Successful people, the ones who actually build these things, they often attack problems they aren't technically qualified for on paper. They figure it out. They give themselves permission to begin.
So the final question for everyone listening.
What high ROT, maybe boring, maybe overlooked opportunity are you waiting for permission to chase?
Factoring can meet the cash needs of energy companies looking to expand. Contact Chris at Versant Funding to learn if your energy client is a factoring fit.